Yeah, that's what made me think about it, yeah.
You see that on the, yeah. Where is it available? It's not the.
Yeah, we went to the theater for it.
Yeah.
Where's my gavel? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Comox Valley Water Committee meeting for Tuesday, December the 5th, 2023. We have no one in the gallery, so no need to go through the fire exits and all that. We're going to go right into the recognition of traditional territories, and we do take this opportunity to every meeting to acknowledge the fact that we are meeting in the territory of the Comox First Nation. First item of business is a resolution status report. If we have a motion to receive on that. Okay, on the status report, any comments? Seeing none, anyone opposed? That carries. Now we have number 2. This is the reason for the meeting today. We have urgent call for immediate action to prevent invasive mussels. Big pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's not skip right into it. You're right. Number 1, Comox Valley Water Management Advisory Committee minutes for receipt. This might generate some conversation. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, once again, call the question. Any opposed? And that carries. Now, the very urgent call for immediate action to prevent invasive mussels is a report from November 30th regarding the increased threat of invasive freshwater mussels to BC waters and the ecosystem. Move a second on receipt and over to CAO for introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the Water Committee for coming together for this meeting. This particular item was circulated prior to, and we hadn't had a meeting up until this point, but felt it important to bring it forward to this Water Committee to give consideration to the matter. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark Rutten, our General Manager of Engineering Services, to introduce the topic, and we can support a discussion following that. Mark.
Thank you, James, through the CAO and through the chair. I've just got a short synopsis here of the report. Zebra quagga mussels are highly invasive and, if allowed to take hold, can do irreparable damage to local ecosystems. They can rapidly clog water intake structures. They can corrode concrete and metal in water, create toxic algae blooms, and litter beaches with razor-sharp shells. Mussels were recently discovered in Idaho in the Snake River, which is a tributary to the lower reaches of the Columbia, which we all know extends up into BC. Quagga mussels were, in response to finding the mussels in the Snake River, Idaho completely sterilized a 10-kilometer stretch of river in an attempt to eradicate the mussels. But this extreme measure was considered a better option than allowing the mussels to take hold. So you can imagine the environmental impacts of sterilizing 10 kilometers of river, but all in an attempt to prevent the ongoing reproduction of the mussels. The Okanagan Basin Water Board, which is upstream of the Columbia, has developed 4 immediate calls for action: a temporary moratorium on out-of-province boats until the full status of infestation of the Columbia Basin are assessed, an introduction of pull-the-plug legislation for all boats transported on public roads, a requirement for all watercraft entering Canada from Saskatchewan to the west to be inspected, and committing funding for the invasive mussel defense program. This report recommends that CVRD support the Okanagan Basin Water Board in its call for action to prevent an outbreak of invasive zebra quagga mussels in BC. Thanks, and I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Mark. Do we have any questions? Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. Mark, how quickly would we know if we actually had an infestation in Comox Lake?
That's a good question. I think it depends. I don't think we would necessarily know that quickly. We're not, we are not proactively inspecting for them. And you know, those inspections can be done in the case of the Snake River in Idaho. They, you know, they were inspecting the river and found them. They found, the tiny little ones, but also found a couple of mature ones. And, but here, you know, we're not, you know, we don't anticipate that there's not a high risk that they're here now. And, I think it would, you know, we would not know quickly whether there was an infestation or not, because we're just not looking for them. You know, I think we would start to notice them on infrastructure. That would be the first sign.
Thank you. And we have Director Wells online.
Thank you, Chair. Going to the those actions, I'm trying to square 1 and 3. So 1 is to introduce that temporary moratorium of out of province watercraft until basically you know, we have better knowledge, I guess. And then 3 is to ask for all watercraft entering Canada at all border crossings from Saskatchewan to BC to be inspected prior to allowing entry. And I see that they're slightly different, but I guess one of the things that jumps out at me is 1 is for anything entering in BC, but the other one is just from Saskatchewan to BC. And I'm just wondering why there's sort of different size nets. It almost sounds like it should just be anything entering BC rather than kind of going and trying to articulate specific provinces and border crossings.
Yeah, I think the way I saw these two, and you're right, I also noticed that they were quite related. But the first one is an attempt to better understand the infestation in the Columbia. And I think, you know, if the eradication worked out in Idaho and there's not found to be any further infestation in the Columbia, then I think what they're saying is that the moratorium would be almost immediately lifted, but that all the boats coming in are inspected. Like as a long-term solution, bullet 3 would require inspection of boats over the long term from Saskatchewan to the west.
I believe Zoe might have her hand up.
Oh,
So you have a comment?
Okay.
Hi there, through the CEO and through the chair to the committee. Yeah, it's basically what Mark was saying, but also the moratorium is just intended to be temporary until the spring. I think they are not going to be able to determine whether their treatment has been effective or not until the spring. And so that was just a bit of a emergency action that they were hoping to take until they can determine that. Whereas the inspections, the other piece with the inspections, I think, is that the cross-border inspections involve the federal government and the Canada Border Services Agency. So they sort of need to manage them separately because it's a different entity than would be conducting inspections from other places in Canada at, say, the provincial borders.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. And I guess it provides a bit of clarity. I guess just thinking about how boaters work, if it is just going to be temporary till the spring, there's probably the least amount of traffic anyway. So there's probably not going to be a whole lot of impact. Because it's really not till summertime that people start flying around with their boats a little bit more. So, okay, appreciate the feedback.
Thank you very much, Director. And Director Hillian again.
Thanks, Chair. I have no idea whether the province will respond to this, but if they did in fact introduce pull the plug legislation, who would actually enforce that?
That's a good question.
Mark, if you like, I can speak to that. British Columbia already has an invasive mussels program in place. And the issue with the program currently is that it's underfunded and understaffed. And so what I imagine is that with increased funding to that program, you'd be able to have inspection stations both at boat launches as well as on highways. Currently, there are some inspection stations on the highways, particularly at entry points into British Columbia. But those inspection points are only open during sort of business daylight weekday hours. They're not open 24/7. And so you only have to stop at those inspection stations now if they're open, and if they're closed, you can just come on through. So the programs are in place. They just have a lot of holes in them. And so I think that there's already some staff, but this would just allow funding to increase the staff and also increase the breadth of the program so that there could be inspections at perhaps at boat launches and some education campaigns as well to ensure that people understand that the reasons why it's important to drain your boat before you transport it, because the mussel larvae can survive, they're free swimming and they can survive in water. And the mussels themselves, so for instance, if there was mussel larvae in the water in your hull of your boat, they can easily be transported to a new location. The mussels themselves can also survive out of the water for some time. So it's they're quite tough little creatures, and they multiply pretty quickly. Each mussel can produce up to over 2,500 babies a day. And millions in the year. And so if they're introduced to a new location, you can see them going from zero to clogging up water infrastructure in a matter of 6 months.
Wow. All right. Thanks very much.
Well, the fact that they are free swimming, I guess that it still needs a human intervention there because they're not going to be swimming up the Columbia River. So I guess that works to our advantage that they're downstream. Zoe, you probably read extensively on this. I just wonder, where did they originally come from? I know they've had problems back in the Great Lakes for quite a while.
I can't remember exactly, but you're right. The Great Lakes is the first place that they were introduced in North America. But yeah, I believe they came from another continent. I can't remember which one.
They muscled their way right in here.
Pardon me?
That's fine.
Oh.
Any other questions, comments? Director Hardy.
I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity in regards to using the check-in spots for the commercial vehicle inspections, where vehicles that are coming in from out of province have to go through that same process as a commercial vehicle would have to, going through those inspection areas, and maybe that helps with regards to dealing with some of that situation as well. Just throwing out a suggestion for your letter.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I see there's no other further comments, so I'm going to call the question on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? And that carries. And if someone can move the recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Moved and seconded on the recommendation. Who was? Okay. So any other discussion? Seeing none. Although anybody opposed to the recommendation? Seeing nothing, that's carried. So new business, addendum, media questions in camera. Leaves one other option. Moved and seconded. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Mr.